Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is ChangeMakersVoice, Voice, and we are streaming to you live on cantv.org/hotline. And we are hoping that you call us today and discuss our question, which we have since yesterday was Mother's Day. We want to be very aware that we are here for women for women and men, but particularly since it was Mother's Day yesterday, we have a question for you. And we'll get to that question in a moment, but first I want to say we're so happy to have a special guest with us today, Miss Laurie Glenn.
Thank you.
So glad you could be here.
I am too.
Great. So Changemakers Voice, as you know, I hope you've been following us each Monday evening. Every Monday evening we come to you live, and we're streaming on YouTube as well. And we are an empowerment platform to uplift the vision and the voice of agents of change, or people and those who aspire to be leaders, those who aspire to make change happen in the world. And so today I'm super excited to have Miss Laurie Glenn with us, who owns a political and public affairs consulting firm, and that's on policy issues.
Yes.
So in just a few moments, I want to share some great things about Laurie. But first, I want to let you know that we're going to be talking about women and power. But today's question for you or a discussion for you to call in is about this. How has Mother's Day been empowering for you? How has it been empowering for you? Now, just as a little aside, I spent Mother's Day with my family, and they shared the love. And so that was empowering for me, just the sharing of love. And women need that. We frankly need the love of other women and the uplifting, but the uplifting of families, the uplifting from our husbands and our significant others. So we're really excited today because that love from yesterday for me is still on me, and I really have benefited from being loved on yesterday for Mother's Day. So we want to hear from you at our phone number 312-738-1060, where you can call in and answer, how has Mother's Day been empowering for you? Maybe it was some good food that you had. Maybe it was some nice inspirational tidbits that someone whispered in your ear yesterday. However you've been empowered, we'd like to hear about how Mother's Day has been empowering for you. And so right now I want to introduce Miss Laurie Glenn by way of her bio. So let's just hear a little bit about her. So Miss Laurie Glenn is the founder and the director owner of Think Inc. And Think Inc. is a Chicago-based strategic public affairs and consulting firm specializing in policy issues, some of what I mentioned earlier. She has more than 30 years of political consulting experience and public affairs experience. So Ms. Glenn serves as a high-level advisor working with leaders within nonprofit organizations, coalitions, foundations, cultural, business, corporate, and civic organizations to address key policy issues impacting a range of communities from the local level to global levels. Welcome, Ms. Glenn.
Thank you.
So, Laurie, how can we sum up what you feel passionate about?
Oh, well, I think freedom has always been what I feel passionate about. The ability to control my daily life, the ability to make a difference in the world, and to, on an existential level, really know that I am leading the life that I want to lead, whether it be from 9 to 5 or after 5 o'clock at night.
Yeah, living the life that you dream of.
Right, that I direct. I believe that it is very important. I don't like authority. I've never been good with authority, so I had to turn lemons into lemonade. And so find a way for me to have my own company. And it was clear I opened my first company when I was 25, that I had to be my own boss.
Wow. Well, that's why we have Laurie here on the show, because we want to inspire other women. We want to empower other women. And Laurie has a lot to say about empowerment, because you yourself needed to be empowered at one time. So we're going to delve into her story a little bit more as we go on. But right now, I want to give you just a little bit of a taste of what Laurie has to say by way of a video, which we like to share from time to time, a video. So we're going to let you see an interview that took place. But Laurie, would you set up this video for us?
Yes.
Where were
actually,
you and what were you talking about?
I was in Paris, actually. I had been in Paris last month to teach a class at the Sorbonne on how to use research to build power and influence. And Carol Dasilva is a wonderful woman, an international leader. I am proud to say I'm on her board of directors for the NGO that she has, both in Europe and now in the United States, about women and empowerment. And she has a TV show that's shown on Télé Sud and Télé 5 and on YouTube in France. And it's called Women in Power. And when I was in France last month, she taped this show, and it's also very nice because she taped it at one of my very closest friends, Robin Silver, who actually is from Chicago. And so this is and she actually had also interviewed my friend Robin, so it's a nice circular story.
Oh, great. Okay, well, let's take a look at what we have for you today. We're going to just take you there and show you just a bit.
I brought this photo of myself with a woman and her two daughters that I went on the March in Washington for Women, excuse me, this last January. And I brought this because I think it's so important that these young women, they will never forget this moment where millions of people came together. And when we chanted, "Show me what democracy looks like," and we said, "This is what democracy looks like," they were so filled with joy and the hope and happiness of what it meant to act in the world and to feel free, and to know that there were so many millions of people across America who were simultaneously marching in Chicago, in Detroit, in Miami, in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, in small towns across the country, and there were marches across the world, to know that that people believe that women should and do have power.
If you were to give...
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We selected that little piece of tape from which Laurie was being interviewed because that showed the passion that she has. So Laurie, just tell us, what are the key components of the work that you do? What are some of the most strategic, key components to what you do?
Well, Think Inc., as you said, is a political and public affairs consulting firm on public policy issues.
Okay.
And we do specialize in working with communities of color, Black, Latino, and Muslim communities, and also communities that are financially challenged. And we do that actually in Chicago as well as nationally, and we've done a great deal of work in France and in Europe. Mm-hmm. So we do four key things. First and foremost, we're strategists. This has always been a big deal for me because women have a much harder time than men for people to understand that we are strategists and we're not just doers. We're not just implementers. Oftentimes, like in a political campaign, a campaign manager is actually implementational, but the political consultant behind the scenes is actually the strategist. Mm-hmm. So when I was a campaign manager, people were like, well, you can run a field operation or do the phone bank, but you can't do the strategic consulting and the targeting of the direct mail. At the time, direct mail was very big.
Because you were a woman?
Because I was a woman. I was a young woman, and being young and being a woman, that was a double whammy. And so it was something I really worked hard at to demonstrate that I could be a strategic thinker and be at the table. And if I raised money for a political campaign, that I could then show you how to spend money. So I'm first and foremost a political strategist. And it's about the world of ideas.
And you're versatile.
Yes, well, we can talk about strategy for all sorts of organizations, whether they be entrepreneurs or whether they be political issues, coalitions, working with government agencies, working with foundations, financial institutions. We work with people across the board because great ideas are just the bottom line for success,
Right.
to have a vision and mission.
Right.
And then once you know what you're doing, really, where you want to go, you need to partner with people. You can't live life alone. No one can do this alone.
Right. No man is an island.
No man or woman
Or
is an
woman,
island.
yes.
And so we specialize in, we know a lot of really powerful people in the world, and we try to bring together people who have a lot of power and influence and resources with people who don't.
And that's the nature of ChangeMaker's Voice, by the way. So you made a very good point, Laurie. ChangeMaker's Voice exists to uplift and empower women, especially those who may not know the pathway forward. And so Laurie has been explaining how she empowers entrepreneurs and to find their voice and their vision. And so that's the work that ChangeMakers does. And of course, that's why we invited you to be a guest on the show. And so glad you can amplify what we are talking about. But just for a moment, we're going to go to some information for our audience to reach us. You may reach us at, all of the information is right before you there. Our website is changemakersvoice.com. Our email is changemakersvoice@gmail.com and so on. And our Twitter handle. And we are, ChangeMakers Voice is a platform of DreamStreet Theater Company, and so we have that information there for you as well. So we'll come back to that again, if in case you don't get a chance, audience, to write this down right now. We will be showing this this slide again, but we want to continue on with our discussion with Laurie. And so, Laurie, how did you get started in business? Let's just go there.
Oh, well, really, I had always wanted to be part of changing the world. My first vision was actually when I was 10 years old. There was this caricature of a man, and his name was Ralph Nader. And he really was singularly responsible for creating the consumer movement in the 20th century. And though people remember him for other things that make them unhappy, one has to remember actually Ralph was pretty amazing in what he did in the early part of his career. And I wanted to be a Nader's Raider. I always wanted to do something that would be part of social justice.
Right.
And I ended up actually working for the Illinois Public Action Council, which was a statewide citizen consumer lobby group that Bob Kramer ran, and he's a wonderful guy. And actually I met Jan Schakowsky and other people like actually Rahm Emanuel and others worked at the Illinois Public Action Council. And I really wanted to make a difference, and I ended up years later then working for Ralph. And that was an interesting ride that then led me back to California. I had studied political theory at the University of California in Santa Cruz. And I ended up working with two people who had huge influence in my life, Lonnie Hancock and Tom Bates. They just retired from almost 40 years in the public sector as elected officials. And I was their organizer in my early 20s. If you saw me in a political campaign, you knew that Tom Bates was involved. He was the assemblyman of Berkeley and Oakland. And when I was about 25 years old, I realized that after working with both Lonnie and Tom, that it was time for me to no longer be their number two, but for me to create my own organization. And that's when I created Glen and Associates. And I decided I was going to be a political consultant, though I didn't quite know what that meant. I knew how to run electoral campaigns. I was doing that. And so I got an office that was kitty corner of the Greyhound bus station on 7th and Market in San Francisco. And I printed up business cards and I said to people I was a political consultant. And I was 25.
You affirmed yourself.
Yes. And actually a woman today who hearted on me on Facebook because I told that Facebook I was going to be on this show, Peggy Hora. She called me up and she said, "You are my third phone call and I want you to be my campaign manager, my campaign consultant." And we elected then the first woman judge in southern Alameda County.
Okay.
And that was a long time ago, and became a remarkable, storied judge and has done incredible things in the criminal justice system. But so I think that I started my career because, again, I knew I couldn't work for other people, and
Right.
I needed to work for
For
myself.
yourself.
And I started my company just with I actually wanted to be doing then what I do now, which is work on policy issues. But then I knew how to run electoral campaigns.
Okay.
So I just started running campaigns. And I just put one foot in front of the other.
Right.
No one taught me. In fact, throughout my consulting career, people would say, "Laurie, can you do this?" And I would say, "Yes, of course." And then once they hired me, I'd call someone up and go, "How do you do this?" And I would take copious notes.
Yes. You were learning on the go.
Always.
And you learned very well, apparently.
I think so. Trying. I think it's a process, ongoing.
Well, yes, ongoing learning. I'm an eternal student as well. But we have a caller, Laurie. So let's see who we have on the line. Hi, caller. Who are we speaking with?
Charlista.
Hello, Shalista. We have our special guest, Laurie Glenn, with us tonight. Just to make you aware, we are talking about empowering women, and we have a discussion topic, which is how has Mother's Day been empowering for you, or any other topic that you'd like to discuss for the empowerment of women.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for taking my call. And I am an artist, and I know that that is a world where men rule, so to speak, and, sometimes it's hard for women to get in and make an impact. And I'd like to make an impact. So I would want to know what would be, I know she spoke of kind of just not knowing what to do but doing it and, going on. But I wonder, what would be a tip that could be given for somebody to just take one teeny tiny step? What might that be?
Talk to other people. Don't be shy. When I actually have another company that's called Think Art, which is an international art and policy salon, and it's a fusion of art and politics. And I started that really in my 40s. And I was not in the art world. I married an artist from France, and I wanted to help him, and so I got involved in the world of art. I always loved art, but I knew nothing about it, really. And the way I was successful was by going and educating myself, going to international art fairs, talking to people, and not being too proud. I didn't know who Carrie James Marshall was, and I didn't know who people were that you would be like, oh, you didn't know who they are, and you could be embarrassed because you didn't know. But people were kind because I genuinely was interested and wanted to learn how to be part of the art world. And people were actually kind to me in their own way. And every step of the way, I just kept being open. And so I think if you allow yourself to have some vulnerability, I mean, you want to protect yourself always a little bit, but allow your natural curiosity and openness, one thing can lead to another. Is that helpful?
Yes, that's helpful. And you mentioned Carrie James. Actually, I just finished the series, something that he did that I embrace for my work. So that's good there. But yes, that's helpful because sometimes it seems daunting, but you just got to take a bite and keep it moving, as they say.
Right. Well, you sound like you have a lot of courage, actually. And I would also say Carrie James Marshall's a really nice man. I've seen him speak, and I think he's very open. And if he's someone who's touched your heart and your art, that you should seek him out and talk to him. I would think that he would be very open. He's a really kind human being from the encounters I've had with him and the times I've seen him in public as well.
Okay, well, that's been very helpful. Thank you very much for your encouragement.
You're welcome.
And thank you, caller, for calling.
Oh, you're welcome. You all keep doing a good job.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye. And now that kind of segues, Laurie, into a question that I had for you. So what would you tell those who have a vision or great ideas that they want to implement, but they're stopped by fear? And I just want to remind you of the recent conversation that you and I had, this fantastic conversation, in fact, where you used a quote. You quoted about courage.
Oh, well, I think that courage, you know, to have courage, you have to have fear. So, you know, if you're not afraid of something, then, you know, you go do something, that's not courage.
Yes.
Like, I am afraid every day. I'm afraid sitting here with all of you watching us right now. But I don't let my fears stop me. You know, I went, when I was 35, I climbed the Grand Teton Mountain in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And I am terrified of heights.
Yeah.
And at one point, literally, it's 15,000 feet, and I was on the mountain face, and I was paralyzed with fear.
Wow.
But I didn't let it stop me.
Exactly.
And I got to the top of that mountain, and I hugged my man who was leading us, and I have never, to this day, I still remember that feeling of being on top of the world.
Wow,
and I
that's
got
exciting.
there despite that. So I tell people, don't, embrace your fears. Don't, every day I am afraid. And every day I make new, interesting mistakes. But I learn from them, and then I get up and I dust myself off and I go on. And I would recommend that to everyone, that when you feel as if you've made a mistake or when you feel you failed, that is just the moment where you have to look at what you learned. Because it's only by these trying new things out that you then figure out what your next step will be.
And I've heard someone put it this way, that if you aren't failing, then you aren't trying.
Right.
Because failure is a natural occurrence.
That's right.
And sometimes we think of failure as final when actually we learn from our failures.
I would say that failing has been something intrinsic to my success, actually.
Okay, a necessary
Absolutely.
ingredient.
Because I had some mentors along the way, but then many times I just would walk into a room and do these big projects and learn along the way. And because that's the kind of learner I am. I love to read, but I learn by doing. And so that is something, and it's part of my life expansion. I mean, I've transformed my own company in several different ways over the years. And that is because, one, the world changes and you need to evolve with that. And I've made mistakes, and I think it's important, I don't want to brush it off, because I know when people fall, it's very hard, because I have
Right.
fallen. But what's important is then to forgive yourself and then to move on. I know it sounds very spiritual, and in many ways, I suppose it is that you have to believe in yourself. Do not allow the world to define your reality. It's very important to define your own reality and to develop a vision and your own mission in life and go for it. And if other people don't like it, okay, so what? What matters is that you live your life on your own terms.
Well, that's exactly why we, again, invited you to the show, because I believe there's some people out there in our audience who needs to hear that type of thing. There's women and men, of course, who have great ideas, but the fear can hold anyone back. And so to hear that it's overcomable, but that fear is natural and failure is not final, and that you push on and you live according to your own terms, that is why we're here. We're not here to live on someone else's terms. We're here to make the most out of our own gifts and talents. And so, Laurie, we're coming very close to the end of the show, and it's been a fantastic ride today with you.
Thank you.
And I want to ask you one more question before we go.
Okay.
So, what steps or affiliations should people deliberately seek out? What types of affiliations, or how would they necessarily get to where they're trying to go?
Well, I think that you need to identify people who are doing what you're doing or what you want to do, and then go and join organizations that they are part of. I mean, don't live in a bubble. When I want to go and be a part of something new, I go to the check out what on the internet are the organizations. Like if you want to be part of the politics of Chicago, there's the City Club of Chicago, and they have programs on a weekly basis with movers and shakers and candlestick makers. And there are power people in that room all the time.
Yeah.
And you can start to meet them because everything in life is about relationships. It's all about meeting and connecting with people. And so if you want to be in communications, there are several communications associations, and there are women's organizations. There's the Women's Business Development Center. If you're a young woman or older woman entrepreneur and you want to develop a network, and they'll put you in touch. So it's really important to not be alone. It's
Right.
really important to develop a network. So that means being curious. So go forward naturally with your own curiosity.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Laurie, for being our special guest. The things that she
you.
shared with us today, I hope you take it to heart, because we are here for you as Changemakers Voice to help give a voice to your vision. So that's why we're here, and that's why we brought a true influencer here with us to share how she has progressed through obstacles and overcome things and embraced her fear and moved through her fears and has won at a lot of her feats. So that's great. And we want to say thank you again for joining us. We hope you will come back next week, this same time, this same station, right here on Changemakers Voice. Good night.
Good night.